Hello, and welcome to the EUphoria podcast, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and SoundCloud. This week, we're going to be talking about the fall of Fnatic and XL, SK Gaming, upcoming best of threes, and predicting the top four. I'm Drakos, joining me is Caedrel, and our special guest to give us the nitty-gritty insight into surging superstar SK is none other than Swiffer.
That was a lot of
Thank you for having me.
really good.
You like that alliteration?
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, boys. That's what I needed. Gas me up. Welcome, Swiffer.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you on, man. You are, I think a lot of people in this new era of League of Legends might not be super familiar with your kind of history. They might look at you exclusively as former academy coach, now, head coach of SK.
Yep.
But can you like introduce yourself to
The
Mark
world.
here? This little
Yeah,
League
I
of
could
Legends
introduce
We know each other
myself
a
to
little
Mark.
bit,
Yeah,
yeah.
we know each other.
Yeah.
Actually, when I met Mark, I'll start with this. When I
Yeah.
met Mark, actually, because that just reminded me of something.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we met?
Was it when you were coaching the XL Academy? Or
Right,
walked in?
right as I was brought over to get introduced
No.
and the facility
Not
and
the
everything.
exact same, not the exact moment.
Okay, I
What?
do, because
Oh no.
that day we went go-karting.
Oh my god,
If you remember.
I almost killed him.
Yeah.
I forgot I almost killed him.
Yeah. And I was really nervous because I was just transitioning from player to
just
coach
came
and everything,
over
and I
to
just got to the
England.
UK
Yeah.
and everything, and then Caedrel ran me off the cart, ran me off the.
Okay, so
the
we were going
circuit.
go-karting, right? And these go-karts were going pretty quick, about 60 mph, right?
Yeah.
And then
That's just a
60
car,
kph,
brother.
kph, right?
I was gonna say,
And we're going down this straight, and I don't know who it is. Everyone's just got helmets on. I don't know who's who, and I think he went around the outside of me or
Yeah,
something.
I don't remember
And
what-
this guy tried to go around the outside of me down the straight, and for some reason, I just drift into him and just took him out.
I want you to know that you were just another piece of competition. I couldn't
I
tell
thought
who
I
you
was-
were.
But the worst
it
thing
didn't
is,
matter.
I remember.
I would have killed anyone.
I was like, he really doesn't want me here, does he?
I remember it so well because I remember hitting him and then looking back and seeing
The
this
tires?
outline of a man go into the tires and just go these tires just constantly hitting him,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I've killed him. So
Yeah.
I instantly just stop on the pits and I get out and I'm like, is he? What happened? He's just still sitting there, and
And
I'm just
mate-
looking at the ground what have I done? What have
Yeah.
I done? And then luckily he came out with loads of bruises.
Okay,
Well, it
I'm
was-
sorry. I don't know what the etiquette on a go-kart track is, so hold on here. You watched him crash, thought he was dead, and then your answer was to stand there and wait to see what
it's not-
happens?
there's other people looking after him already. I don't know what I can do.
he was in mourning. It's fine.
Yeah, I think maybe I should have gone around again and then got out next to him or something.
I was just
run along the side of the
me,
track.
who's never had an injury before, I was like, my ribs are broken.
Just all these tires went into his ribs.
Yeah.
And oh my god, yeah. I remember now.
Yeah.
That brings back memories.
Yeah. But yeah, before that,
Before you were
that
almost
incident-
murdered by Caedrel. Got it.
yeah. No, I was a
bad.
player in Australia for I guess 5 or 6. Wait, hang on. What year was that? Yeah, about 6 years. A lot of I went to a lot of international tournaments, wildcard tournaments, right? Never actually progressed into never progressed to Worlds, which is something that
Same.
Haunts you.
yeah, that's why we're here now. Anyway,
To
but
be
yeah.
fair, for people who don't know, before plans was a thing, there was international wildcard qualifiers, and that's what you played in. So the equivalent of plans. So by modern standards, you would have made Worlds. You just never made Worlds group stage.
Yeah, yeah. And that was it. I'm just a player for a long time.
Bro, you're really underselling yourself.
Am
Okay,
I
so the
though?
thing is, if you don't care about Oceanic League of Legends, maybe this doesn't matter to you. But he's a member of the OG superstar dynasty Australia lineup. So you have this prolific Australian esports history. Now you're coming in, you're coaching a team that historically has found middling success.
Depends on how far back you want to look.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. In recent years, has found
Okay.
middling success. If we want to go back to before they were SK and they were the Shrapnel Commandos or whatever it was back in the...
It was 2011 or 12, I think SK was
Yeah. Anyway, TLDR, you guys are popping now, and we'll talk more about your team in a little bit. But first, I just want to talk about your last week. I think you guys were locked on Saturday, based on other people's results and obviously on your results as well. But coming in your final game against Fnatic, you guys were smashing. Exakick showing up, solo killing Reckless.
Yep.
Big banger. What is it like right now for you guys behind the scenes? How are you feeling after this? I would say pretty big success.
Yeah, I would say that as well. I also like it's kind of weird because obviously the community expectation wasn't particularly high. Going into it after the few weeks that we had of boot camp and everything in December and January and preseason and all of that stuff, I think the expectations that we set for ourselves were actually rather high. And so having these types of games or whatever, I think obviously we celebrate the wins.
Yeah.
But we're also aware that they're not like the cleanest games or anything like that. And I think that the players as well have like this, it's crazy because they have like such high expectations for themselves that whilst they were happy that obviously they won, it wasn't like we weren't like celebrating or anything. They recognized like that there were a lot of things that we could improve on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were those like sky high expectations? Were they as like nailed down? Like, did you write them down on a list? Is it just they want to play the best that they can? Is it you want to finish top 4? Like what is the goal of SK, let's say, this season?
I didn't really write down like anything particularly. I think that as the preseason went on, the expectations just kind of rose higher and higher. Not too I would like top 4, top 5, I would say. I think that coming into it, we would have been happy to make like 7th, 8th, I think at the beginning of the year. And then, given the relative success in scrims, I guess. And then, which also kind of fed into like us feeling like we underperformed a lot during week 1, right? Those expectations coming in, I think, really kind of affected the players a lot, and also new players on stage, like not used to like the LEC or anything like that, or the pressure or anything like that. I think a lot of that kind of just got to us as a team in week 1.
How was the off season? Was it because you basically imploded the whole team and built it all around Certus? Yeah. I can imagine that was a really stressful offseason and finding the right players or like being competitive on the market.
Also, if you're keeping track, we're just going to do the SK topic now. If you're at home and you're following along with my order of operations, we're in deep. I was just like, I shouldn't have asked the first question because now we're just in it. Now we're talking about SK. We're going to talk about Fnatic, you drama thirsty bastards waiting. It's going to come. You could skip ahead in the timestamps. This is SK Power Hour now. Let's talk about SK. So sorry, continue.
The off season?
Yeah. How was the off season like? Because obviously you had Gilius and
a lot of calls.
Treats and stuff like that, but everyone was just thrown out. Certus was kept, and you had to kind of build around him. Is this the direction you wanted to go in terms of like inexperienced players, like rookies, just try something new? Or did you want more of a veteran roster, you think?
I think we initially had the idea of having at least like a veteran in the roster, and we pushed for that during the off season, whichever role it would have been. There were a lot of like free agents that we spoke to and everything like that. At the end of the day, obviously, I mean, there were a lot of interviews, right? A lot of interviews, a lot of calls.
Had to turn down Faker.
Yeah, I mean, it was just
Ruler.
I was like, guys, we all need to speak the same language. Sorry, we can't like.
I really appreciate you. No, I get it. We could totally. No, you want to pay your own buyout because you want to come here. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it went. So it was kind of like that. But the initial kind of idea coming into it was find really hungry players, find like 5 grinders that all share like the same mindset, find people that value like a really good team environment and everything like that, and see how it goes.
Interesting, because I think you look at like the way some rosters are built in the LEC, it's like who has achieved the most in the last year? Let's try and get them. Yeah. And let's work down that list of like highest achieving players and just throw them all together rather than just, take Exakick and DOS from who won EU Masters, I think it was a couple splits ago, and have been top of the LFL, and just take a risk. And then not only that, but also have a really inexperienced top laner, have a mid laner who just came off the back of his first year, and a jungler who has only been together for playing in the LEC for a year.
Yeah. These are the rosters that I think are more interesting when they succeed, because it feels like really it's about either showing us, like when you look at this lineup and you see your success, people have to respect that either some players have surpassed expectations in a big way, which I think is the case, or that a roster is stronger than the sum of its parts, which I think in SK's case is also probably the case, as opposed to other rosters in our league where they're either built out of superstar names or imports or like
recycling,
that
one huge name,
or that one huge name. And I think those are the rosters that feel often more like a known quantity. Like it feels way easier to lay expectations on them. Whereas like Phil, can you show the tier list? Like, we obviously did not give you that benefit of the doubt. We put you down there next to BDS and C.
I see that.
C for... I don't know. Charming. Very charming. Oh no, I'm trying to redeem ourselves. Like,
well, we did say you would make top 8. We weren't wrong.
That's good.
They did make top 8.
One of them was not going to make top 8 based on that list because the only person in the bottom was okay. Anyway, I'm not here to say like we the point of this wasn't to embarrass ourselves, although we have been thoroughly embarrassed. Well played by your team. It was just to say like these rosters are interesting, but always hard to know what to expect from. But I think these are the ones that I'm the most excited about because like the P word potential is there for a lot of these players. The new stars of LEC have to come from somewhere. And it's rare, I think, in the case of SK that we see a roster like this, where it's built from different pieces, some potential new names, from the LFL, some names that had good, okay-ish years last year when you look at Irrelevant, Marcoon, Certus. Like, to see you guys now thriving like this is, I don't know, it's always just one of the stories that excites me the most about a league, when a roster that isn't expected to achieve maybe the highest highs just based on names alone is already hitting the ground running.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'm just going to say, I just saw the flow and I scrolled down and I saw the SK discussion and I realized that was a lot later on and I've brought it up earlier.
No, but I started it. It's not your fault this time. We have this running joke that Caedrel, I spend like the week, week, down. Like after the show is done, I write a script, I write a layout, I write bullet points that I want us to hit, and Caedrel shows up, looks at it one time and then goes, got it. And then just ruins it. Jumps to wherever he wants to jump.
Instead of going from A to B in a straight line, we take like 6 different turns.
I ruined this one. It was natural to talk about SK.
Yeah, the two players, just coming off the back of what Draco said, is like Exakick and Marcoon.
Yep.
They are like standouts in their role by far.
Yeah.
I think Marcoon, let's start with him because his first 2 games on stage were horrible. Like the first 2 games you guys had as a team were just awful.
To be fair, like that, as a team, I would say it wasn't just Marcoon. It felt like you guys looked... I almost
shaky?
Scared. Yeah, almost scared. Like you guys just didn't want to do anything.
Yeah. Like I would see him like gank top on Vi or gank top on was it Kindred or something and just basically die when he's going in this 1v2.
Yeah.
And then, funny enough, I don't know if it was on the Monday that I was casting or the week after on the Saturday. I walked past the SK boys on the stage and I could hear Certus especially just being like, I don't give a crap anymore. Like these people are
definitely crap.
Shit. We don't care anymore. Like he had like this mindset of like, if we lose, we lose. We have no expectations.
Yeah.
Was that instilled at the start, or was it like they lost 2 games? Maybe we do suck. I don't know if we do suck, but let's just play with no regrets. Like, what happened? What changed?
Yeah, I think you have to go back and look at just like the week leading up to the LEC, like the beginning of the LEC. Because I had like I think because of the expectations that I kind of said that we put on ourselves and everything like that, I had like an inkling that it wasn't going to quite match up 1-to-1. And so I started getting like really stressed out during like that week, which is not a good thing. Right.
Yeah.
And I wasn't quite sure how to like, how to avert what I thought might have happened what could happen. Sorry. And so going into like game 1, I think what ended up happening in game 1 was there's just a lack of decisiveness. Like I don't want to. Yeah. Anyway, I won't get into it too much. But there was quite a lack of decisiveness around it. Like not really like an understanding of like win conditions and everything like that in the draft. And then the second one, I think also speaking of like Marcoon, put him on something that wasn't like too comfortable for him. Like in from a drafting perspective. So on that front, like I didn't do a very good job. But then after game 2, we went back and we sat down for like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and just like went through the entire game and just spoke about how in scrims or anything like just the way that we play or how different it is on stage, how much more aggressive we are in scrims, like the opportunities that we look for and everything like that. And also the fact that no one was really having fun, like playing on the LEC stage, which is like such a bad thing.
They were just really nervous or like
really
tense.
Nervous, tense. Anything like kind of like alluding to that, right? And then so coming into the Sunday, it was all right, guys. Let's just chill a little bit, have a bit more fun. The vibes were a lot better. Draft was also a lot better. And then we just played it through, right? And it wasn't like the cleanest game. It was like there's still a very shaky game, right? But we were proactive. I think the players found themselves a lot more during that game than the previous 2 days. And yeah, I think everyone kind of had like a moment to shine during that game, which was good to see.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds hugely positive. And I can understand your like stress and anxiety leading up to that week one. Because how do you like, almost like, it's like, I can imagine a parent whose kid is good at football and then they go to play college ball. How do you tell them that like, sweetie, you were good in high school, but you might be shit? You know what I mean? Like, how do you tell someone to lower their expectations when all you want to do is watch them succeed? Like, that feels like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So that just feels like something that had to be experienced. And even if you saw, I don't want to call it calling it a train wreck is totally not fair to your players. But even if you saw those difficulties coming, it's like calling them out doesn't do anything other than like shoot them in the foot in terms of confidence. So it's just like, you know it's coming and you just have to take it full on that like, maybe it's probably not going to be the same as it was in scrims, which is from what it sounds like and from what we heard from countless other teams that you guys had played against, that you guys were monstering in scrims.
Yeah, occasionally. We definitely had variants. But yeah, I think it kind of had to happen for us to have that conversation and to like turn it around more than anything. I mean, if we had come in and just like performed exactly the same, it would have been very unexpected. I think. But yeah, I think it kind of had to happen like this and have those really tough losses. It's going to come for every team. Like that's the thing, like going into it and like underperforming and understanding like your limitations as a team in that moment. And as long as you're able to actually draw something constructive from it, and not, because the format is also like kind of brutal. It's really brutal. Weeks, right?
It's great. As a spectator, fantastic. Best format change in the history of League of Legends. As someone playing it, I can like, even experiencing it as a caster, it's intense. So I can only imagine what it's like when you're actually playing it. It is unforgiving.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to turn that momentum around. And the fact that we managed to do it, I think is like a testament to the players' like drive and everything like that they, and like optimistic outlook, I think. And like having like something to fall back on, which was, as we kind of like said already, the scrim results and everything like that. And kind of like the team environment that we built and everything like that, and everyone feeling like open enough to give kind of honest feedback to one another, I think is like very, very important. Yeah. I
mean, that's a fantastic thing to have. Do you feel like this format then, because that like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed thing, we hear a lot about rookies, especially on teams where there's a decent chunk of rookies.
Yeah.
Whereas veterans, I think, it can be somewhere, like other places in the spectrum. They can either be like, I've seen it all, we're going to be fine, don't worry about it. Or they can be like, oh shit, we lost 3 games, we're trash, it's doomed. You know what I mean? Like they come in with that pessimism. True. So I'm wondering, do you, and this is a question to you too, the format is so fast. Do you think that it favors, like from a mental standpoint, do you think it favors rookies because they're quicker to bounce back because like, oh, it's a loss on LEC, but losses are expected? Or does it favor veterans because veterans are like more likely to perform in the clutch? I'm just spitballing here, but this is something I'm thinking about now.
My instant reaction is like, look at the evidence in this way, right? Fnatic and XL, 5 veterans on both rosters, just mental collapse by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because they have like sky high expectations and so little time to turn it around. That I think it's true that the more veteran you are, the more pessimism can creep in because you just get sick of the same thing over and over. It's like having the same arguments, same problems, different team, whatever it may be. So you can get really caught up in just, do we really have to go through this again? Whereas the rookie is just he's like a sponge, he's just so like open-minded and hasn't really seen any of the arguments or downfalls of teams that nothing's really repeating and they have to fix problems over and over. So they feel a lot more like, let's just do this, I guess.
I think the repetitive thing is actually something I didn't really consider too much. But I think you lose like a certain amount of like goodwill probably towards like if you have to go through the same thing year after year after year, it's just like, can we just skip this and just get to the part where we win? Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure, right? Like I'm not entirely sure, but that seems to make some kind of sense.
I mean, even just as I think the average gamer at home, if you've ever played, like let's say you played League 3 years ago and you were a decent player and you come back and you're shit now, like that's a really bad feeling. You know what I mean? Like, because you're like, you can see, you're like, damn, my hands are bad. I normally wouldn't die to that. I'm such a griefer.
Yeah, and I think that analogy...
And that's with 0 stakes at home in your room. I can't even imagine it when it's your job.
That analogy kind of works in a way where if you're just a league player overall and you've only started the game in the last year, it's very likely you're probably not that toxic, because in the first year, you're just like so open to like the game and like the community and like the way things
crazy.
work. And if you're like, jungler ints, you know, it's kind of like, sometimes it's funny, maybe it's like,
you're like,
you don't really get it.
Yeah.
And then you don't really understand it. And then after like 5 years of league and your jungler coming mid again and dying, like your frustration levels and your tolerance levels for like mistakes
bad junglers is just
so
not
low,
there.
and you're just ready to snap. So I think it's just like natural. It's like, you know, you work a job for like 10 years or whatever, and you know, you same problems or whatever, you see the same shit.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a tendency. Not all veterans are like that. I think a lot of them can like zone it out, but I think they love when rookies come in, and the rookies bring that energy to the veterans sometimes, so that helps them. I think that's why a balance is good in a team.
Yeah,
I do think it is a conscious effort to shift that mindset. I think the mindset that we're talking about, where it's like problems are fresh and you're a rookie and you haven't seen it before, so it's just easier to shrug it off because it's not a pattern of behavior. It's just a one-time. Like your jungler into you, it's like, oh, whatever. People have bad games. Your jungler into you for the 1000th time over 5 years of career, over 5 different junglers, like. You know,
just like
that patience. Because even if you think you're letting it go, if you're holding on to it at all, you know, if you're not really consciously like, I'm going to let this go, it's not a big deal, this happens, like you're probably holding on to a little something. And I think over time that can be toxic. And I think there probably are players who are good at being like, that's not a good way to feel, I'm going to let that go. But I think if players aren't, that requires a level of emotional maturity that like, I mean, I struggle with. So I'm like, I can't expect pro players. I can't expect everyone to just have that.
The interesting thing to me and most is like Exakick, because I saw him before the game against G2. He's like a Hans fanboy. He's getting a selfie with him. You know, if I saw my teammate doing that, I'd be like, dude, you're not his fanboy today, right? He's on the enemy team. Stop, just chill out. And then he just stomps him. And I'm just like, what, this guy, he loves Reckless. You know, he liked his career. Destroys Fnatic, you know, just picks Caedrel Lux. They can't lane. He's under tower level 1 at tier 2. Like, what is this guy's mindset? Like, how is he so good, but also so genuine at showing emotion and respect to people? Like, especially when he plays against them.
He's very modest. Like, I don't know. It's kind of a gem, right? He's very humble, obviously. He's very hardworking. Yeah. Very hardworking, like, behind the scenes. Just wants to, like, have that shot, prove that he's good and everything like that. And Hans and Reckless were, like, the people that he... like looked up to and everything like that. And I think just having the opportunity to play against him, I think is really exciting for him. And he kind of like just meets the moment every single time so far, right? So
he's the kind of player I look at where he gets outplayed and he kind of like smiles in his head. He's like, wow, he played it pretty good.
Yeah.
Rather than like, for God's sakes, like, how did I screw that up? You know?
God, that's such a sick mentality. Just as a side note, like I envy people who can hold on to that. I hope he can hold on to that for his entire career. Because I think people that like really love the game and aren't, you know, and don't like get that, because it's so hard not to get an ego. It's so hard not to just raise your expectations for yourself as you play more and more. But if you can just come in like, wow, I thought that guy was shit, but he just outplayed me. Like, good on him. Like, if you can say that in a high stakes game, you are like the greatest human being on the planet.
I think he's getting a little bit of an ego, to be honest.
I mean, how can he not?
I mean, he did beat Hansama and Reckless, so like, who's next on the list?
I mean, like you look over like at his PC sometimes. He's looking at his own stats on Games of Legends.
Oh no!
I mean, so should I or should I? Because I did actually look at Botlane stats. We can talk about this at some point.
It's. I'm looking at it now. It's disgusting. I had it CS at 15, 100% CS differential, 15, 22.
Oh, yeah, he loves it.
Like, okay, but I will say that for me, before you say that, the breaking point for me of like these guys are legit is when they dove Koi Botlane 2v2. Yeah, straight 2v2, just dove them double kill. I looked at that and I was like,
I mean,
actually, same.
I think that like I'm on the Exakick hype train in a very big way, and I don't want to oversell him or give him a big ego. And I think it was the first game when you guys played Renata Zeri that he finally like had a solid game. Him and Doss had a solid game, and I was like, all right, we got to see more. And then it was like, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, 1 or 2 more Zeri games, and I was like, okay, show me something other than Zeri. And then he did. And then he kept showing me new stuff. And then he just started killing people. And then he killed Reckless, which is like, at this point in the season, like, not as spectacular, but historically, like, sick. You know what I mean? Crazy. Just run up, casual solo bolo. Yeah. Admittedly, someone did like walk into a Caitlyn with Gale Force, but we don't need to talk. We don't need to talk about that.
You know how he said he has a big ego, or his ego's coming on? I feel like we're like gassing it up even more now.
Well, the problem is,
starts inflating and he's watching this podcast. Turn it off, Exakick.
Yeah. We can talk. we can talk more about AD carries generally when we like look ahead to best of threes, because I was looking into stats. Because while this meta is boring as hell, the nice thing is, and it's because it's in such a short period of time, and because the meta is so stale, it's a really good meta to use stats to evaluate AD carries because the sample size is big, and everybody's basically playing the same shit.
Yep.
So stats good right now. We can talk about it in a little bit. Otherwise, though, this guy, it seems like he's coming up. It seems like things are going well. But I'm curious how you're feeling about the upcoming best of threes, because it's been looking good. Are you a team that's going to make a smooth transition in?
Well, that was kind of the point of this last weekend. Like the compositions that we ran were kind of all a little bit different to one another. Like the win condition was different in each one, which is something that we wanted to do. Like my co-coach and I wanted to do coming into it, because we wanted the players to feel like they could execute more than just like one style on stage, which you kind of need for a best of three, right?
Yeah.
To varying success, I think, depending on which day you look at. If you look at like the Astralis game as an example, like I don't think we executed very well in like the win condition, whatever, and then ended up like throwing that game. But strategic diversity is something that you always need for a best of three. And I think with like a rookie team, with especially one that you've really only been training like fundamentals in, it is going to be difficult to make the transition, but we have a few days to kind of like tighten up a few different things. And
is that scary? Like the fact that you only have like 3 days before your best of 3 elimination rounds are up?
I think you can look at it as scary, or you can look at it as like kind of a challenge. And I think the mentality that we have is like more of a challenge mindset thing. And I think that makes it more exciting than scary.
Also, I suppose riding the momentum is better. If there was a week break where Koi could have like an extra week to prepare, they would probably be a bit scarier than just like, okay, you're playing in 3 days, that those best of ones you just finished and you just won and you stomped those teams and you're going again with that kind of pace.
Yeah. Before we talk about your match versus Koi, I want to circle back. Week 3, great for you guys to talk about. Solo kills, bam, bam. Not the cleanest games of all time, but you came out swinging. But while you guys have risen, 2 teams have fallen, XL and Fnatic. They're dead. They're dead as hell. I wish I could say that it was valiantly fought and that they like really came up on stage and gave it all they got and bars.
You got a rap song ready for
it's unintentional, but here we go. I mean,
the opposite of the playoffs rap. It's just like the rap
so
battle of the 2 teams that got knocked out. I'll be better next split. I got more than one win.
We've talked about that before. We thought it might be BM to do a 9v10 rap battle.
Yeah,
there's a lot of material. But yeah, both these teams, sky high expectations. We touched on it earlier. Absolute and total collapse, I think we can say, for both of them. Some shining moments in some games, but to be honest with you, like, I think you're kind of doing them a disservice if you focus on the good at this point, because this was a catastrophic season. Mark, you can kick us off, because I don't want to make Swiffer just like shit talk the competition when they're already down. You don't have to kick the dead horse. You can comment where you want.
With XL or Fnatic? Who should we start with?
You did a whole freaking video essay on Fnatic, so should we start with Fnatic? What is your
wow, I did a 40-minute video on Fnatic.
40-minute video,
something like that.
Twitch.tv / or not Twitch.tv, YouTube, Caedrel?
Yeah.
If you want to watch the full thing, but what's the TLDR? What is your diagnosis, doctor, on this whole Fnatic thing?
Where do I start? So first of all, coming into the split, Wunder and Reckless played together on G2, right? And it was clear on G2 that you have 2 side lanes who are so veteran that they're more flexible than is directional a word. They don't have a direction, you know?
They'll play whatever,
exactly. But I feel like they're also playing whatever in a passive way, like to nullify. So Wunder will play like Gragas, or he'll play like Gnar, or he'll be like fine and he'll do his job. And in most cases, when you have this scenario in top from a player, you need someone on bot who can like push the advantage, you know, Upset was doing a really good job at that. But I think Reckless is the same, where he will just play Varus or Ashe or some kind of Senna lane, and both side lanes are just there to be flexible in draft, and there's no I will carry or give me first pick Caitlyn. So that puts a lot of pressure on mid jungle. And in G2, it kind of worked. This style should never work in a team, but it kind of worked in G2 because they had Caps, and I think Caps is someone you can always rely on to just pick something on R5 or something and just carry the game with an Akali or something. But yeah, historically, if you look at World Championship winning teams, And you look at EDG, Flandre was a little bit of carries, but it was mostly like the Viper show, and Scout can play roaming or mages or whatever. Damwon was top side, right? You had Nuguri, and then Ghost was playing Ziggs. There's no side lane direction. You guys, I think your side lane direction is bot. Irrelevant just seems really flexible. You can blind the Scion, doesn't care. He'll tank it, take that 20 CS deficit, and then Botlane will be fine.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic at that.
He seems really smart as well.
Yeah,
at like how to give things up. Yeah. So where's the direction, And then Humanoid's playing Azir every game.
Yeah.
So he can't really impact the map. And you can't really play Talia or anything like that because they have no pushing sides. I mean, they played Xayah Leona into you. They played Camille top into Gnar. Both sides get pushed in and you're playing a mage mid, so you can't even cover them. So you're just diving them level 3.
Yeah. And
they can't lane. So first of all, no direction. Second of all, why does the bot lane have no direction? Well, I think they have different styles as well. Rux can't play range supports. I'm just going to say it. Like, he just can't do it. He can only really play melee supports in my eyes. And then Reckless doesn't seem to want to go for Caitlyn or Lucian because they're just perma-banning Caitlyn Lucian. Like, there's some games they're triple-banning AD and trying to first pick Varus, and that's their comfort. And if they drop AD, they'll just play Sivir, right? So I feel like they're sacking bot way too much in such a heavy bot-centric meta. They can't play the meta because they struggle to play range supports. And their band-aids are things like Rakan and Leona, which are fine if you can get to mid-game, but I don't know why their jungler just doesn't path bot often. Like, even in their game against you, I was surprised that Wukong's pathing top.
Yeah, I think Mark was also surprised. Mark Hoon was also surprised in comms when he wards over and sees Blue and Gromp gone, and he's like, oh, we're just going to proxy this Xayah?
Yeah, this Xayah is going to stand at her tier 2 for 3 waves. Yeah. And until he bases and comes bot, and you'll lose your blue buff, right, as Mark, but who cares?
Yeah.
So I think they had a lot of communicational mishaps in how they should play the game. They had no real direction on how to play the game from draft and from their players. And then I guess that just puts a lot of pressure on Humanoid and Razork to do things. And you can't really do that much when you're just playing Azir every game.
Well, it just sounds like even then, it's just, you said it's never the way you should really be able to play League of Legends. And it just sounds like it's one thing to ask a player to carry, but it's another thing to take his legs out from under him and then say, hey, buddy, time to carry. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Razork was just, I think the best comparison I can make is Razork right now is in the TSM Spica world, where I think Razork is good. It's just the mental of that team is broken. He has nothing to really play for. And it's the same in Misfits. When he has a direction to play towards, top side, he's fine. When Fnatic was really messy last year, but when it came to the Poppy Trundle meta of playing for bot, he found his footing, right?
Yeah.
When he knows what the plan is, or he has respect or reliability in a lane, then he'll play towards it. But when nothing's working, he just kind of juggles fires and just ends up making himself look bad because he tries to compensate for things. And I feel really bad because I actually think Razork's good, but he's getting a lot of flack for the games.
There was that game before we played. Who were they playing? Australis, I think. Right?
Yeah. Sunday's game.
Yeah, and then there was this sequence in early game where 113 was invading bot side.
Trundle Vi,
the Trundle Vi matchup. And if you look at if you watch the minimap at that moment, it looks like their bot lane is coming to defend or attack the Trundle.
Yeah.
And so Razork
walks up,
and then you see the bot lane path back to the lane, and then you see Razork just die.
Yeah.
And it's
and he's from if you zoom out, he is making a lot of mistakes, Razork, don't get me wrong. But if you actually look at some of those mistakes and zoom in, you can see that it's just communication mishaps. You talk about that.
Yeah.
They had Varus Nautilus roaming first, dropping the wave to get to Vi to help the 2v2 the 3v3. And maybe they lose the 3v3, but if they're there first, they can salvage maybe a camp.
Yeah.
And then they turn around, then jungle dies, and now it's Razork's screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that it's just watching the games alone. I appreciate the niche analysis there, especially of Razork in this context, because I think the struggle is that obviously fans with high expectations want blood, and they want, as always, a martyr. They want one player to point a finger at and be like, it's this guy who ruined the team. And I think we're not, even if that was true, you're not going to get that context from just the gameplay, short of one player objectively sprinting it, right? And everyone else playing good, right? Which is not the case, because I think everyone on Fnatic has been struggling kind of across the board. But what do you do coming into next season? How do you actually salvage this looking forward? And again, I don't want you to because you guys don't have that knowledge behind the scenes. So I think it's unfair to say bench X player, fire this guy, do that. But is it actually possible, do you think, and I'll ask you this, Swiffer, to recover your mental and come back as the same 5 stack and perform better next season, or is that too much to ask from players who have now failed in such a catastrophic way?
It is a spectacular failure, isn't it? I think, to me, I just feel like they never really found what they wanted to do as a group of five. It just seemed, you guys kind of already touched on it, right? It just seemed like, okay, weak side top, weak side bot, try play through. It's a really flaccid way of playing.
Yeah, it's good.
So, you know what I mean? So I think if they are going to continue with the 5 players, I think just commit to, even if it doesn't work, you just need to commit to a style and actually just commit to it through, even if it doesn't work for the first 2 days. If you keep flip-flopping around, you're never going to find why the initial identity that you decide on doesn't work.
Yeah.
Unless you actually stick through with it. It's actually, and it's, I know I'm kind of I don't mean to segue away from Fnatic, but if you look at G2.
Yeah, sure.
And the way that they especially played, so alluding to also what I said earlier about the win condition and everything like that.
Yeah.
They would, it's kind of watching back and talking about how I could have better prepared and everything like that. Watching, I think, the game plan from G2 in the early game, the conditions that they always have are pushing bot lane, yike, invade, bot side.
Yeah.
And
it's an identity, yeah.
Yeah, it's an identity. And they actually just keep running it every single time. And so they know all the variations of what can happen. And then it gives yike a really nice script to follow in the early game. And it feels and I think it must be Dylan Falco kind of I feel like it's him kind of his hand over that.
Yeah,
right. And it feels if Fnatic kind of committed to, or any team, right, committed to a similar kind of approach where it's just run this thing, these are the conditions that we're going to meet every game, or try to meet every game in draft, do this, and then just keep working on that. And bit by bit, it feels bad at the beginning because you just lose in 5 minutes, but just keep chipping away at it. And eventually you'll understand the sequences a lot better. You'll have a foothold in the game that you can play around. And then if you want to run back the 5 players, you just need to commit to, I think, something like that.
Yeah, find a formula.
And I like that angle because, again, I think people are mostly calling for blood, or blood in the sense that they want someone to be fired for this. And I think that while it is obviously the most disappointing finish in Fnatic's history, I like that. I think that goes back to what we said earlier, though, about being willing as a veteran to kind of humble yourself and say, we're going to stick to this. It's going to feel bad. And even though I feel conceptually I should be able to tell right off the bat whether or not this is going to be good for us, we've agreed to it. We're going to stick to it. And I'm just going to sit in here, despite my years of experience, and suffer in this thing that is not working right now, but I believe in the long run will work. That's hard. That just sounds so hard to me.
It's also a PR nightmare to do that. If I was a Fnatic fan and I know
it's like Garen Yumi when Fnatic just got stuck on Garen Yumi and people hated it, but they stuck with it. And in the end, I think they were net positive for running Garen Yumi all the time, even though some of those games at Worlds that year were awful.
Yeah.
Looked useless, beyond useless.
Yeah, but you're right, where it's if I'm a Fnatic fan or even a higher up in Fnatic and I'm looking at this and the decision is let's change nothing, going into next split, I'm already expecting it to fail. And when it does, then well, I told you, this was obvious from the get-go, why didn't you do something about it? So I feel whether they think something should be changed internally or not, the amount of pressure around them, they probably have to change something, because then if you change something and I'm a fan and you change, let's say, 2 players, then maybe I'll start to believe again. But if you're saying you're going to just want to run it back, I'm just going to look at you and say, why am I even here anymore? You guys don't care. Where's the effort? At least try something.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if 2 or 3 people just get taken out.
I mean,
and they just start again.
Yeah, and I don't
take it out.
Just drag them out back like old yellers. Sorry, buddy.
The problem you have
our metaphors are dark. That's all I'll say. All of our metaphors are really rough. I'm talking about they want blood. You're they're taken out.
No, the issue they have
is just a job still.
Is
by the way,
in their defense, if you're a fan and you say just replace Razork, just replace Wunder, just replace Rux, whatever you want to say, yeah. With who, you have to understand that LEC splits are misaligned with every other region now. So I can't just go into the off-season, during the LCK off-season as well, and the LPL off-season, and start contacting teams being trade players, buy players, because they're having to do it now in the next 2 weeks, and other regions are halfway through their split, even ERLs. So it's really hard to just find a player.
And also, ERLs are strong enough now And Fnatic, I mean, if Fnatic had gotten top 3 and wanted to make changes, maybe they could have gotten a player who would have been down and they could have found a buyout if they wanted to throw enough money at the problem. Yeah. But ERLs are strong enough now that frequently ERL players will turn down offers from LEC teams if they're not excited because they want to wait for that spotlight shot. So it's not easy. Maybe when ERLs were first started or we back in Challenger, it would have been easy to be like, oh, hey, Red Bulls, let's like pick up Kissing or whatever, just an example, but a player, you know what I mean? But now it's not nearly that simple.
I think you're kind of crazy though if you're an ERL player and you say no to Fnatic though. I think they should take it.
Yeah, I mean, Fnatic is not a lower down org in history. Like we used to say back in the day, I don't know if this is true anymore, like the second you had Fnatic, it joined a Fnatic roster, you just tripled your social media following and presence just instantly.
But I remember when I was a player, I don't know, you maybe know more about contracts these days for ERL players because of the signings. If I was halfway through an ERL split, if an LEC team wanted to sign me, my contract will either go void, or recently I've heard the buyout is a lot lower than an ERL team because they're not competition directly.
Yeah.
And they want for the best interest of the player to go to the LEC team.
I think from what I've gathered, if you feel like you have a chance of being contacted or something, you will negotiate for like an LEC. If it's an LEC team, you'll negotiate in your contract for the LEC team to be able to like buy you out or talk
straight away. Yeah. Rather than like at the end of the season.
Yeah, and that's like a condition that most orgs are like willing to do in order to like attract the talent to them, right?
Yeah. I was speaking to some ERL players and they said in modern day contracts, the clause is if an LEC team wants to buy them, the buyout's normally around 10 to 30,000 euros, which is actually really low for an LEC team to just buy an ERL player straight out, because ERL salaries are actually pretty high these days. Top team ERL players are like 4 to 6k a month, right? So if you leverage that over a year, normally a buyout is double your yearly salary. So 10 to 30k is pretty cheap for just getting an ERL player. So that's the direction they'll have to go in. Importing is a bit hard.
I think regardless, it's just, it doesn't feel like there's any easy answer for Fnatic or for Excel. And Excel are in a very different situation, or in a very similar situation. I just think the difference is because Excel don't have the pedigree of success, and also because while their roster is full of players who have had high highs, aren't multi-title winners, aren't like a big household name in the LEC and EMEA in the same way that Fnatic are. I think that like people are looking much less at them, but I think they are a team that has failed just as much, because Patrick, when we look at Patrick Mickey last year, a lot of people were talking about them as the best 2v2 bottom lane, and obviously Targamas is here, and obviously they're struggling, but like VTO looked great on Misfits. I know some pros behind the scenes feel like that was oversold. I feel like he was, alongside Neon, like the big reason Misfits were able to win, not to take away from your boy Irrelevant. He also played pretty well.
Irrelevant.
Ottawame, champion. Xerxes was the best performing member of Astralis, and Astralis didn't have a lot of good results, but he was the only player we could talk about on Astralis last year when we wanted to say something like positive. So on paper, this roster should have at least been competitive to make top 8 at the very, very minimum. And yet, once again, we have catastrophic, unbelievable, unfathomable failure. And I think that they're in very much the same boat as Fnatic, probably just less people, again, calling for blood or needing to be dealt with or whatever,
Yeah, but take care even worse.
Take care of the problem. It's like we're in The Godfather.
They're going to get taken out.
Excel waste management. You know what I mean? They just gotta show up.
I mean, there was one big change in the offseason as well. I mean, they did get rid of Caedrel, right? So into into winter split, I'm not really...
What were they thinking, actually?
I know, I'm not really... I'm kidding.
Mark Lamont, a.k.a. eSports.
I mean, I got taken out.
A.k.a. eSports, Jesus Christ. Excel the Romans, like how biblical are we going to get here,
bro? DRX did win Worlds while I co-streamed for them, you know what I'm saying? No. Anyway, let's go back. I don't want to...
Okay, so the good news is, you were worried about your boy Exakick getting too big of an ego.
Yeah.
But you just show him this clip and he'll be like, oh my God, that's the most cringe thing I've ever heard.
He's like, I've got so far to go.
He's going to be like,
and that's
actually,
only 1 minute's worth.
I never want to end up like that, so thank you.
I never want to end up like Excel either. 1 and 8. 1 and 8.
That was a good segue.
That was my transition.
Yeah, that was a really good segue.
That was a good transition. Your transitions have actually been fire today. I don't know if people have noticed them, but
no, that was a terrible transition. But Excel are dead in the water. They're kind of even worse off than Fnatic because they only won 1 game.
Well, yeah,
I guess it's a little bit worse.
Well, we're going to talk about Botlane stats here in a second.
I also don't think Fnatic are like, we did pretty well compared to Excel.
No, I don't.
We doubled their wins.
Yeah. I think that it's doom and gloom for both these teams. And I think the difficulty of the turnaround now being so fast after a difficult season is something has to change. I like your strategy of focus on one thing, swallow your pride, do it, even if it feels like shit for a while.
Yep.
Just like find one way to relearn how to win the game by picking one way to win the game and just doing it ad nauseum. Sounds great to me. I think that for both these teams, if they can do it, they might also look for a roster change. And I think it is less, not that individual performance shouldn't be taken into account, but a lot of these teams, there's a lot of bad performances across the board. I think it's more just about finding that honeymoon phase again, baby. Bring in a new player, pretend like you're starting over, pretend like it's all shiny one more time.
Dream. Yeah.
That was a bad dream, guys. That didn't even happen, you know?
Yeah.
We're all waking up with our brand new blank. Jungler, bot laner, support, wherever you want to go.
The format never changed. It's spring. Winter never happened.
Yeah.
We just started.
It's just like the LCS kickoff tournament, you know? We were just testing. Testing.
XL, what do you think? Any thoughts
from the get-go? What do I think about XL? I actually thought they were stronger than what they showed. I think like they were actually like I thought they were stronger than Fnatic. And
is that from scrims that you're like referring to?
Yeah. And I actually thought they had a pretty decent like preseason as well. I have no idea what happened between like second week of January and the first week of the LEC. No idea. I don't know. I don't know if there was like an internal conflict that never got resolved, or like there was a really big disagreement about how they wanted to play the game, or whatever it is that happened. But like it,
The Excel you saw on scrims did not show up on stage.
Did not show up at all. Yeah.
Okay.
And I can't pinpoint exactly.
I think, and that's the struggle of this conversation, right? Is if we really wanted to have and dissect either of these teams, we have to work with the knowledge we have, and that's never going to be complete. And you at least have the knowledge that there was something more there for Excel, which I think is great context for the fans to have, that like in scrims, they showed more. There was something behind the scenes there that was more redeemable than what we saw on stage. That's a nice thing to have, even if it's kind of like, you know, here's your nickel after I punch you in the face. You know, like at least you got something out of the exchange.
But what kind of fall from grace are we talking here when you scrim them? Are you thinking like, okay, this will be a pretty tough team?
It definitely wasn't like G2 Vitality. Yeah. It wasn't like that. Definitely like a tier below, but up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing. I mean, let's go through some of the things, because like I'm just looking at. You talked about Botlane.
Do you want to? Yeah, I'll just do my Botlane stats.
You hit me with Botlane stats.
So KDA, damage per minute, blah blah blah, are garbage stats because they're super win biased. The only time they matter is if you want to compare two players who play lethality VARs all the time. Then you can talk about damage per minute. Just stop using KDA.
Who's the better Legolas?
You know, like CS, probably fair. Obviously, lane matchups come into account, but like CS probably fair. But the ones that I'm looking at are forward percentage, because a lot of this meta is about getting the push. So how often do you actually have the push? And then K plus A at 14, specifically compared against jungle proximity. So how many kills and assists are you getting in the early game? And also how involved is your jungler in your lane? And so it will not surprise you that your boy Exakick is stomping. I had to update these stats because I got them on Sunday.
Exakick and DOS.
Exakick and DOS.
Yeah, we forgot about
hold on. I'm not trying to undersell DOS. I was just looking at it from the perspective of
DOS and Irrelevant are like the bread, you know, and Exakick and like Marcoon, like the nice meaty patty. That's actually like
I never want you to refer to a player as meaty ever again. That was so weird.
The analogy sounded way better in my head.
Yeah. Well, it did not sound good in mine. So thank you.
It was a bad dream
for that. Anyway, this is just looking at it, framing it from the perspective of 80 carries, not to undersell the what supports are doing for any of the players I want to talk about. But Exakick was tied with Hansama and Kabe before the final day, but now he's leading in forward percentage, 36.3%, which is crazy. This is massively ahead. For reference, Patrick and Reckless, 80 carries from the teams that were knocked out. Patrick at 20, Reckless at 13%. Abysmally low. And Exakick,
oh yeah, by the way, just for people at home, forward percentage is past the middle of the lane.
Past the midway point of the lane. So if you just cut a line down the map Summoner's Rift diagonally, because we look at it in an isometric perspective, this is the time you spend past the halfway point. And keep in mind, you can roam the river, you can do a million things that would stop you from doing this. So to get that high means you are getting the push consistently, and you are smashing lane.
That's what happens in K-Lux versus Ileona.
Yeah, to be fair, you did. It's a bit of
a bit inflated.
You did. That there's an extra 5% there just because of that lane. To be clear, but even before that game, God bless that, I had those numbers. It was already 31. So like your bot lane, G2 bot lane, and interestingly, Astralis bot lane, the best at keeping that forward percentage. Inversely, Heretics, Jack Spectra, Patrick, and Reckless. Getting their shit kicked.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at, I know Patrick's CSD is minus 20 at 15, right? He's just sitting in his tower, getting blasted. And some of those games, it's the Fnatic conundrum where jungle's top and they're playing like a Varus lane and they can't push, and now they're being threatened on dives and they're getting dove and no one's there to help.
Yeah.
But I don't really know what to pinpoint for XL. It was just, everything was abysmal. The only difference I think from Fnatic is maybe, I think VTO played okay. Like, I think his first few weeks, or his first week and a half, was pretty bad.
I just think...
But then he started towards the end of the split, he was like the only reason they even had a chance in some of these games, I felt like.
I don't know, man. It's so hard to say, again, individually. And it's such a boon to great teams, because if you're playing on a great team, you're 90% of the time going to look great. And if you're playing on the bad team, 90% of the time, you're going to look bad. And especially if it's a team, a cross-team thing, again, and not just a spot the enter, one guy is going 0-9 every game, which does happen, but much less frequently. I think there are some redeeming moments for a lot of different players.
The clit effect.
But it's really rough. This is one of the biggest gaps bot lane statistically that I've ever seen in our league. That isn't just like, because usually in the past when you've had like G2 and Fnatic at the top, they were just 2v2 killing people every game. It was that. But like, this is, even if they're not getting 2v2 kills, these lanes are just not showing up to play, is what it feels like in the stats. Watching the games, obviously they're getting bullied. There's junglers coming down. There's like lane discrepancies for sure. But like, this is hands down one of the biggest gaps I've ever seen in terms of statistical presence in bottom lane. It's crazy.
Yeah, I wish there was like a couple things to pinpoint, like as to why XL are losing. But like, even Odo he won Summer, right? And he was a player who he picked like Oran blind pick in the finals, gets counter picked by Gwen, by BB, and then just like dives him under tower, and Odo just solo kills him under his own tower, right? Yeah. And that's like the reliability. He was like the most rock top laner domestically, and then he was like getting solo killed a lot in the first couple of weeks, never really got any attention.
Yeah.
Then started going towards things like Renekton and had a few games where maybe he could carry, but he was never really like able to get involved in much. Xerxes, I feel like his champion pool is really small, in my opinion. Like he would play like Wukong Vi, and that's kind of it. Everything else just looked pretty bad. And if you look at last year on Astralis, it was just Wukong Viego every game. And was his kind of like two tricks in a way. But yeah, VTO played okay. Botlane was just, nothing worked ever. And their bot reads like Varus Pike, like into Yuumi lanes. I don't know. It didn't really sell me.
Look, okay, I think I'm getting sucked into this a little bit. And as much as I love like trying to dissect what went wrong here and giving these teams the time of day, because it does suck that they're knocked out of our season. We've got 8 other teams now. So I want to shift away, because I think that Fnatic and Excel, it sucks, but we're never going to have the concrete answers we want. We can all agree it sucked. They can agree it sucked.
I think we're all surprised.
And we're all surprised.
Yeah.
So now I want to shift our attention looking forward, because one of the teams that, while they are on 7th, has been rising up, and a team that you're going to play against in best of 3 is Koi.
True.
Koi looked like good, and then hot mess, and then this last week, kind of good again. And Resurgence. It feels like they've kind of gone back to the Koi of old, when they were known as Rogue back in the day. Scaling, safety, really clean trades as much as they can on the map. Not about flipping, not about taking risks to snowball leads. Felt like take it late. Larson control mage looked good. I don't know if you want to correct anything there, but like, that's to me what it felt as just a spectator.
Yeah, for me, it was like when they played the summer finals against G2, they actually took it to them in the early game. Yeah. Which was very surprising, and also the best that Koi has ever looked. Yeah. I thought.
I agree.
And so I think like the reversion back to like the scaling thing, I think when their laners were just better, it worked a lot more. But I think like there's been a lot more skill parity at the moment in the league, and I'm not sure if that, I mean, like, I don't know, right? Like maybe it's just going to work again. But I feel like just a reversion back to like the late game scaling, and like thinking that you're going to outlane everyone is not going to be like a reliable way of winning anymore.
Yeah. And to me, it feels like we talked earlier about when Fnatic hitting a wall, drafting something, sticking to something. It feels like Koi kind of took a step back, said, here's something we know works.
Yeah.
Here's something 4 out of our 5 players have played and have been successful on. Let's go back to that to get the wins we need. I would hope for more development going forward and to show us another look. But I think that I respect their decision to kind of go back to this strategy to get the wins necessary to make top 8. Because they were, Caedrel, you predicted them last week not to make it. And I think based on what we saw in week 2, super reasonable. But it does feel like they're getting stronger. But are you confident about this matchup then? Are you not as concerned? Because this, I think, if they hadn't had this good week 3, but they had still made playoffs and this was your opponent, I would be like, SK are my favorites. But now that they're looking better again, I'm getting these getting nerves in the back of my head because it's
what they're capable of.
And the onus is on you if they're going to play like this to get shit done in the early mid game, which I think for younger players is a tall task and is often how we see veteran teams beat younger teams is they just go late and then just
grind them
play,
out.
but just play better in the late game because they've got more experience.
Yeah, it's definitely I think it's we have gone through some late game sequences, but it's so experience based because you can't actually realistically train it in scrims. So that is always a concern, right? If the game does go really long, they should edge us out. That's just the reality. Right? Because of experience, is the reality of the situation. In saying that, I think when you look at Koi or you look at Rogue's history, they were always very good at getting a gold lead early, and then I think even in that Mad Lion series, I think was it 2021, where it was it's okay, they come into the mid to late game with a gold lead, but then their team fighting was a bit suboptimal, and maybe. That again was I think before comp and everything and everyone joined, but I don't know. I it.
It's always kind of stuck with them a little bit.
I think they have clear ways of winning the game, but I think I'm confident, not arrogant or cocky or anything going into it, but confident that we can kind of read the script, I suppose, that they want to do, and they could probably do the same for us. So it just is whoever kind of reads it better on the day, I think.
To be honest, it's not a bad place to be because, again, if you told me SK versus Koi, best of 3 last year, at any point in the year, I would have given the edge to Koi.
You give it the edge, you would have said
I would have said
the edge,
the edge.
Done
just
so.
Slightly.
So I don't want to, because I don't want to I don't want to take the wind out of your sails by saying, wow, you should be happy that you could you feel like you could go even, versus Koi going into a series. But I do also want to, because that's unfair to your players who should not be burdened by the difficulties of previous years. But I do want to say from a bigger zoomed out perspective, again, credit to SK for coming as far as you are to now be able to, on paper at least, based on what you believe, based on what we've heard so far, go toe to toe with Koi in a series is a big step. I think that's sick.
Yeah. Sure. Also, it could be a spectacular failure. Who knows? And I'll just eat my words.
Live in the optimism. Live in the optimism.
Well, the good news is, let's say you did lose, right, and everything goes wrong. You've got another best of 3, right? And you're let's say likely you play against Heretics.
You're playing against Team Heretics,
and then if let's say Vitality then beat Koi, you have a rematch. So you've already figured out what went
the
wrong.
old best of 6, buddy.
We love that.
The old best of 6. You can figure out what went wrong, how it went wrong, and
have a week.
Yeah, I think Rogue's formula has always been Malrang early game jungler, Larson control mage, bot has the push, Odo was the I'll chill out, you tell me what to do, I'll play a tank if you need me to, I'll blind pick. But with Shigenda it feels a bit different, maybe a bit more carry orientated. Do you think this has affected their bot side a little bit?
Oh, I think they definitely pay a little bit more attention to top side. I think that's a conscious choice. I don't think you should pick up a rookie and then just leave them. I think that's could be traumatic.
I haven't seen my team in years.
So I think they have had to adjust to putting more resources into top side, and I think that could have affected bot side, but just maybe it just also because Koi had quite a long year last year, right?
Yeah.
I think maybe just they're just warming up.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's also fairly valid, and they're going to come into form come best of 3s and stuff
Was there teams who rocked up later on in the year to scrims rather than I presume you guys started pretty early, but was there teams who were we're not scrimming till next week or a couple of weeks? I wonder if Koi started later than most teams.
I actually can't recall now, no, because there was an abundance of teams in December and stuff.
Yeah.
So I can't really like remember the absences. Yeah.
But enough. I think going through the rest of this group, and excited to see your matchup with Koi. Putting Koi as the favorite. Telling you right now.
That's right.
I love you. It hurts to say.
But maybe SK are like the LEC DRX, you just keep
to be fair, exactly. I was going to say, last time we put you in C tier.
You went third place.
You went third place.
So now if...
Thank you, Yumi.
Hypothetically, if we, don't vote for you guys to win the series, then maybe you do win the series.
Yeah.
That's our cop-out because we're too scared to stand by our opinions in the face of someone who's negatively affected by them because we're cowards.
This is EUphoria podcast.
It's EUphoria podcast where we're scared, and that's how that's how the MVP vote always goes to whatever guest is on.
It's true, and that's how we jumped in. But also, I think that I don't know what our track record is, but I think our track record this year so far is like guest comes on, then wins that weekend.
Okay, true, but please don't encourage the superstition because this is how we got people to like stop accepting invites to things because they literally like pros are superstitious.
Yep.
If all of our guests had lost in the following week, pros would actually refuse to come on because of that superstition. So let's not.
Yeah, they'll tie it into like having to wake up earlier, and then that affected my schedule the next day.
Give it and take if. I would say let's just take it out of the equation.
Run through the matchups with me.
So, SK versus Koi.
Yeah.
Vitality versus Team Heretics. Let's just start with Group A. Reminder for how the format works. You can get into the nitty gritty, whatever. It doesn't really matter. 2 wins and you are out. 2 losses, or 2 wins and you are out. You've advanced to the next round. 2 losses and you are out.
Taken out.
You're taken out. There's nothing left for you. You go home.
On theme.
So even if you lose this first best of 3, you will get a chance to play against the loser of the other best of 3. So in this case, if we say SK is going to lose against Koi, we are going to assume that Vitality is going to beat Team Heretics. I'm not going to go into that. Feels pretty obvious. Is anyone?
Yeah, I think Vitality beats Team Heretics. My SK Koi, I think I'm an SK believer. Gigachad. Yes. It's like, I have this... No. I have this sweet spot for Bro in the LCK. And I also have a sweet spot for SK now as well. I don't know. If you look at their last game, your bot lane is just destroying their bot lane. And maybe it's matchup dependent, right? You're playing like, what are you playing? Lucian Yumi versus Ezreal Nami? I think you're playing.
To be fair, Koi...
I also don't think either side of that matchup, like I don't think either side of the player were experienced in that matchup.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Week 1 and 2... Koi were doing some weird shit with their bot lane in draft. They were like, I see you all prioritizing your bot lane and jungler. What if we just sacrifice our bot lane, leave them till 4-5 and say, what do you got for us, boys?
Yeah.
That's how we ended up with the first Ashe Ezreal, which Fnatic so lovingly decided to recreate.
Yeah. No.
That lane was bad.
The Ashe Ezreal, was that against the Heimerdinger lane?
They locked Ashe and then they last picked, it was really bad. I can't remember the draft exactly. And then Fnatic also did it. It was not good. I think. I don't know if that was a scrim thing, but like watching it, it was like didn't do anything. The lane didn't do anything.
Yeah, I believe in SK to win that best of 3. I think Koi will then lose and then slowly start to win out as the best of 3s progress, in my opinion. Because I think they need more time.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah,
I just want you to predict the group then. So if SK win the first best of 3,
yes, then Vitality
then
will beat them.
Vitality's going to beat them,
and then Koi will beat them,
and then Koi will. Okay,
that's
so you get one, but not the one that matters.
Yeah.
Sorry, bro.
No, right.
So I think Vitality and Koi will get the group, but I think that matchup SK. Yeah, I think they can win the first best of 3 in my opinion. I think Irrelevant's just underrated. A couple of players I've spoken to just say that he's really smart and aware on when to not die.
Yeah, I mean, like actually, because it's funny because on like in official games he's like weak side king and everything like that. This guy is like
griefing
monster. No, like just 2v1s.
He's
like he's just nuts, right? Like, and we're getting there. We're getting to the translation.
But respect to him that he can be a monster in scrims and then just like lock the Scion on stage.
Yeah. That's actually kind of Chad. Goes in scrims, plays Camille Fiora. I don't know exactly what he's playing. Takes tier 3s in 10 minutes and then.
But again, no ego. Can take it on the chin and just pick Scion and just accept that he will never look good in that lane.
Yeah.
That succeeding that lane is not feeding.
So
that has to feel so bad.
There's a hidden gem. Beast mode, carry mode, best of 3, flexibility in the top side coming out one day.
All I'm saying is, actually I won't say it because I don't want to give anything away, but let's just say that there's a champion that gets banned against your team a lot, and it's not just the Elise, and I'm wondering, that's a little scrimmer.
Could be.
Could be.
Well, no, don't give me more information than that.
I'm excited to see the best three. I think the beauty of the league and the format right now, I think a lot of people will agree, is like not only are teams like really competitive, surprisingly, like SK and BDS, you guys just look like you can beat top teams.
Which is great. Again, the turnaround is fantastic from last year to this year. It's really sick.
But also the format now, the best of threes is just, it's really hard to guess who's going to get out, first of all. Second of all, then you're going to best of fives and top four with another double elimination. And you have more chances, like the first round's over, the bottom two teams are gone. I think the whole idea of this weekend of just constant best three, all the matchups are exciting. It's going to be fun to watch.
I agree.
But for Group A, I'd say Vitality and Koi get out, SK win, Vitality win, Koi win. What about Group B?
Group B. Swiffer, why don't you break this one? Your team's not in here anymore. I don't want to put you in a position where you have to predict 4 against your team, because that's your job. You should always believe that you're going to win. I do. But it's just not fun for the fans.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Let's predict your group. You're like, well, we're going to beat Koi, and then we're going to beat Koi again, and we're going to make it out. I don't need that. I want to know Mad Astralis G2 BDS.
I think it would be... I think actually it would be very, very surprising if Mad and G2 did not make it out of this.
I agree.
As much as BDS has been on the rise, I think it really has come off the back of like Adam and Crownie.
And
Shio has also had like a pretty good split.
Yeah.
But like, I think that win that they got against Mad, just gave like Adam the perfect like Darius angle, and then I don't think that will happen again.
Yeah. I remember you were talking a little bit earlier on about like how the longer the game goes on, experienced players are more favored.
Yeah.
And I looked at the BDS versus Vitality game. I'm not sure if you remember it well, but it was like they had 15 kills and Vitality had like 4. Yeah. And they weren't taking objectives anywhere. They were just like trying to make picks, getting these kills, but nothing was transitioning into anything. Well, and that's what that game kind of worried me a little bit for BDS in this matchup specifically.
Even in the G2 BDS game, and I think this happens a decent amount for some of these younger teams. You could see that like BDS were actually smashing, and admittedly G2 fumbled that 2v2 bot lane, sick 2v2, or BDS outplayed it, depending on how you want to talk about it. But it was really only when they went into the jungle, overcommitted onto Azaya, and then gave Perks a shutdown that the game even started to get close again. Caps a shutdown, Caps a shutdown, what, can't keep track. Legacy mid laners, whatever. And I think the same thing in some of these mad games where it goes late, it's just like, you can't, against that caliber of team, when you put your foot on the gas, you can never take your foot off the gas. Or you have to be so wildly far ahead that you can give up a few kills and it doesn't matter. And getting to that stage is short of a perfect Adam Darius angle is such an incredibly hard thing to do, because one thing that Mad are still really good at and G2 are still really good at is like, or G2 at least, their mid game is still insane. If you give them any edge, they'll take over the game for you, I feel like. And Mad's still great at team fighting. Still very good at team fighting. If you mess up your engage, if you flank and not everybody's on the same page, they'll collapse on your flank, they'll kill you, they'll outplay you in the fight. And that's a thing that makes them really terrifying, I think, both of these teams as opponents, because they just have something to fall back on that means that the onus is on you to play out a game flawlessly, which I think is, while Crownie and Adam have had incredible seasons, I think it's safe to say, and Shio has definitely had some shining moments, it's like, no one on the team can make a mistake if you want to beat these teams in in any kind of best of. In a best of 1, sure. And you got a chance. No doubt in my mind you could take a single game. But a best of 3 is a different beast. I think it's hard.
It really is hard. And especially in double elim as well, I think like experience also favor for double elim. If this was just single round robin best of 3s, I think it's a whole new ball game. Like God knows what could happen. But I think in terms of like raw upsets of making out the group, if we say on paper Vitality, Koi, Mad, and G2 are like the favorites to make top 4, who would you say is the upset potential? I think for me, it's SK.
Yeah, SK. And I think that's Mad and G2 and Vitality, I think, are the 3 best teams in the league. And I think Koi has the potential to be 4th if they get back into form, but it's kind of one of those I'll believe it when I see it sort of angles. And so I wish I could say that it's because I believe SK are like leaps and bounds better and are like clear shoe-in for number 4. But I think it's more that top 3 feels very clear to me. And it's the water gets muddy after that.
Yep. That's fair.
And I think in this case, you guys have the easier group in some ways. Like I think BDS will probably pretty handedly beat Astralis and they'll feel good about that. I think you guys will have a harder time with Team Heretics than BDS will with Astralis, assuming you both lose your first round. But in terms of like the person that's actually going to gatekeep you out of top 4, I think that Koi is a more easy opponent than Mad or G2.
I would say that
Yeah,
too.
pretty definitively. Yeah, it feels like not a bold statement.
Yeah.
What do you think about the new patch though? Do you think that
last thing for the day?
Do you think this
new patch
hurts teams, favors teams? Do you think that like shifting everything up can be?
Should we recap the new patch? There's a lot of changes.
There's a lot of changes. A lot of AD carry changes.
First off, Freak made a video on YouTube. It's great. It's long, but skip to the parts that interest you. It's a big patch. I don't want to like read each.
This is like preseason level patch.
Yeah. All you need to know is Yuumi is dead. They did everything in their power to kill Yuumi. She is real bad now.
Yep.
Your Freak said like your friends that are really bad at League of Legends can still play Yuumi and use it as a way to learn how to play the game, but everyone else stop playing Yuumi. Yep. At least in pro.
We stand at Yuumi death.
I think Lucian Nami's death has been over-exaggerated.
Yeah. Slight nerfs to Lucian Nami. Maokai nerfed to clear speed, a little bit of nerf to sapling damage. Demonic Embrace, which is a Maokai item, also nerfed.
Heimer nerfed.
AD carry itemization changed so that Navori and IE come out second. You can buy them second. You only need 40% crit chance to activate. Which we'll see how impactful that is.
Yeah, and a lot of fighter items.
A lot of healing. Omnivamp gone from most fighter items.
All fighter items, I think.
Doesn't Gore-Drinker still has it, right?
I don't know. Everything's gone to lifesteal now from the top of my head. It's just they've removed Omnivamp.
Can't remember Gore-Drinker. Like Eclipse doesn't have it. Healing was hit on Death's Dance. A lot of the CDR has been taken out of items. Black Cleaver's been buffed. But there's a lot of changes. But overall, again, you can read the patch notes or check out Freak's video because the more important question is, what of these changes feel relevant? Yuumi is the only one that I think everyone can see this champion should be 100% dead. But without you giving away too much in scrims, can you give us like a scale of how different the meta actually looks based on what you're seeing in scrims?
We actually haven't scrimmed on this patch yet.
Oh, it's right. It's Wednesday. Because it's day off yesterday.
Because it's
expectations. Initial expectations then. Perfect. Then honestly, you can't leak anything because nothing's happened yet.
I feel like going into it, aside from like the Yuumi and the maybe the Heimerdinger, like not being as prominent, the bot lane meta probably is
the same.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that
Caitlyn, you can just go with like Gale Force IE.
Yeah, it's like Caitlyn. Like I think Zeri is still going to be fine with like Lulu. I think like Lucian Nami will probably still be fine. I think like for EU especially, I think Draven will be still fine.
Oh yeah, Draven of course.
Right, like.
Jungle meta, maybe Wukong was. It's like Sunder or Champs to me sound good, but I guess like the Vi difference now is you
feels like if Maokai drops a little bit, Sejuani just goes up.
True.
Like, Black Cleaver is now the new super gold efficient item instead of Chempunk. Maybe.
Yeah, and then also
even though Chempunk is still really gold efficient.
I think when
also Grievous Wounds changed, so like healing across the board has been hit. So
healing got hit. I think when champions get like if an S+ tier champ gets removed from the meta and one champ gets bumped up, let's say Maokai's removed, Sejuani goes up.
And Elise,
then I feel like champions like Trundle, like counters then start creeping in a little bit, like maybe Kindred or these champions like Olaf perhaps into Sejuani are like something we could see. There was also buffs to champions like Lilia and Orianna and Zoe, so maybe more like control magey mids, but I feel like with Maokai gone, oftentimes we saw very heavy AP mid jungles with like Maokai and Sejuani with Azir and things like this. But maybe now with Vi and Wukong and stuff being stronger with the item changes, we can go back to like just AD and AP mid.
On paper, I kind of expected this patch to be
falls off a little bit
revolutionary, and I think that it is like step one, but feels like a multi-patch process that we won't see until spring. Till next season, because next patch is the patch where they buff all of the melee champions, which is going to be a great patch if you're a spectator and for Europe in general, because hate to break it to you, but we're still not that great at enchanters compared to Korea or the LPL, so nice of them to buff before we go to MSI.
No, we haven't seen any Caitlyn or Kalista support or Twitch or
I think
I think that wheelhouse is something that EU should not open.
No, I agree. I think we stick to the Ashe.
Yeah, stick to the Ashe.
Good.
Simple
push
one
the W,
button, press R.
Halo Blades autos, you're fine. You're chilling.
You can engage. No, it's interesting. So I think lucky for
also
us.
Side note, shout out to Little Brav. Man hit a lot of Ashe arrows this last weekend. Side note, we were just celebrating everybody else on the team.
Also Trimby, was it against Vitality? Perks was just permast unlocked.
Jack Spectre and Perks just playing catch.
I feel like if this patch was a Worlds patch, you would be in trouble because you go to the LCK and LPL teams with like those Caitlyn lanes and stuff, and God knows what happens. It's either we find a solution and a band-aid, or we just get smashed and try it ourselves and suck. But it's not.
I think when you look at this, 13.1b is what it's called because of things. It's essentially 13.2, but 13.1b. When you look at this patch, I think overall expectations are Yuumi dead and then small adjustments throughout. So maybe there are one or two champions that rise because they're counters to the new S tiers. But I think on paper, if you're a viewer, expect very little change in terms of overall meta. Is that fair?
Yeah. Rise. Yeah.
Rise. Oh yeah, Rise got nerfed.
Yeah. Little hit there.
It matters, but I think still late game Rise.
Unreal. Actually, VTO's Rise the other day. It's disgusting. That 3v1?
Oh, yeah,
the
outside around the
Elder
Drake
thing? Yeah.
It's spooky, dude. This champion is so disgusting.
Yeah.
I'm excited, though. It'll be an interesting week. The first best of 3s in the LEC. Is that ever? Or for a long time?
For a long time. Since we did best of 2s and people hated it, then we swapped to best of 3s and we stopped doing that because nobody wanted to watch it. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you want to watch these best of 3s. Sorry, old LEC. I'm not trying to...
Stakes.
This is actually absolute banger. Remember, it's double Alilim group format. It's GSL group, so lose 2 and you're out, win 2 and you're in. That's all that matters. Your favorite team just needs to win 2 best of 3s. Vitality versus Team Heretics, XK versus Koi, Mad versus Strawless, G2 versus BDS. 2 groups, 8 teams, only 4 can remain for playoffs. We've got 2 weeks of best of 3s.
2 weeks. So it's going to be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, best of 3s.
Yep. Next
Saturday,
week,
Sunday,
best of 3s.
And then Monday,
best of 5.
Will be the first best of 5.
Yep. That's going to suck to play. But we'll talk about that next week on EUphoria. Any last words before we go, Swiffer? Anything you'd like to share, say to the SK fan base, to anybody?
I'm happy that we've been a happy surprise, I suppose.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to try and do that. Win fans over. It's great. Every time we win, we get 3 more fans. It's fantastic.
Does it exponentially grow, hopefully?
Yeah, hopefully that's where we...
Let's start with 3% growth.
Oh,
per 3%.
Game. Yeah, okay,
there
yeah.
You go.
Compound interest.
That's what we're hoping for. Anyway, but we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. Hopefully we give you guys good games and everything. So yeah, just keep watching.
SK GigaChad.
Yeah.
SK, there it is.
Top 3, baby.
Yeah, thanks again, Swiffer, for coming on, sharing your insight on the team and everything else. It was a pleasure to have you. Good luck in your series against Koi.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, make the upset happen, dude. Live the dream.
You're the Titans, not them.
Yeah. Well, as anticipated, we're going to win this one and then lose the next one, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah. You're going off what I say, not what he says when you're going to lose straight away.
To be fair, I said they're going to win and they were going to get... Okay, fine. All right, fine.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You know what we should do next time?
What?
We just predict opposites, so at least we can say one of us is right. Otherwise, there's going to be people in the comments. People in the comments be like, "You stupid analyst, you always get it wrong."
That's right.
But if we never get it wrong, we can always get it right.
We'll just cut the tape. There has been EUphoria.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week with more episodes, and more importantly, we'll be back this weekend with best of 3s. Tune in. You do not want to miss it.